Why U.S. Navy SEALs are feared worldwide. Cold open. Enemies do not fear the U.S. Navy SEALs because of their guns. They fear them because of their minds. A SEAL can go 5 days without sleep and still hit a target with a single shot. A SEAL can swim for miles in freezing black water and still smile when he reaches the shore. A SEAL can lose everything in a single night, his team, his plan, his safety, and still find a way to win. That is the promise of this story. Not myths, not movie scenes. The real reason why, in over 80 countries, the mention of a Navy SEAL team can make hardened fighters lay down their weapons before a single shot is fired. But there is one more thing you need to know before we go further. Somewhere in this story is a mission that almost failed. A mission where one small mistake could have ended in disaster. We are not going to tell you what happened right away. We are going to build up to it piece by piece, the same way the men in this story built themselves up piece by piece until they became legends. Stay with us until the end. Because what happened on that mission is the real reason the world fears the Navy SEALs. And it will change how you see every single word that comes before it. Let's begin. Section 1. The making of a myth. Every legend starts somewhere small. The story of the Navy SEALs begins in the cold waters of World War II. Back then, America was planning to storm beaches held by enemy forces. But there was a problem. Nobody knew what was hiding under the water. Hidden mines, metal spikes, traps built to tear apart landing boats before soldiers even reached the sand. So the Navy did something bold. They built small teams of swimmers. Men who would go in before the invasion, in the dark, with no weapons but a knife and their own courage. Their job was simple to say and almost impossible to do. Swim to the beach, study what is waiting there, and swim back before the sun rises. These men became known as combat swimmers. They were the seed that would grow into the SEALs. By the 1960s, President John F. Kennedy wanted a new kind of fighter. Not a huge army, not tanks and planes. He wanted small, smart, deadly teams that could strike anywhere in the world, by sea, air, and land. That is where the name comes from. SEAL, sea, air, land. From the very beginning, the idea was different from any other military force in history. Most soldiers are trained to fight as one giant machine. The SEALs were trained to fight as ghosts, small groups, quiet movement, total surprise. And that difference is the first reason the world learned to fear them. You cannot fear what you can predict. A large army marching toward you can be seen from miles away. But a team of 16 men who slip out of the ocean in total darkness, complete their mission, and vanish before the sun comes up, that is not something an enemy can predict. That is something an enemy can only dread. Fear built on the unknown is the deepest fear there is. And the Navy SEALs have spent more than 60 years mastering the unknown. Section 2. The training that breaks and rebuilds a human being. If you want to understand why the world fears the SEALs, you do not start with their missions. You start with their training. Because before a single SEAL ever steps onto a battlefield, he has already survived something most humans could never imagine. It's called BUD-S, Basic Underwater Demolition SEAL Training. It sits on a stretch of beach in California, and it has one simple goal: break every man who walks onto that sand so that only the strongest minds are left standing. Out of every 100 people who begin this training, on average, fewer than 25 finish it. Not because they are weak. Many are already elite athletes, college wrestlers, former lifeguards, men who have never lost a physical contest in their life. They fail because the training is not really about the body. It is about the mind. Picture this. It is called Hell Week, and it is exactly what it sounds like. 5.5 days. Around 20 hours of hard physical work every single day. Less than 4 hours of sleep across the entire week. Sometimes none at all. Freezing ocean water. Wet sand rubbed into every part of the body until skin cracks and burns. Boats that must be carried on top of the head for miles, as a team, because if one man drops it, the whole team suffers. And through all of this, there is a bell. It hangs where every trainee can see it. And at any moment, any man can walk up, ring that bell 3 times, and it is over. Warm food, a hot shower, a soft bed. All he has to do is quit. Every year, most of them do. But the ones who do not ring that bell learn something about themselves that stays with them forever. They learn that the mind gives up long before the body does. They learn that pain is not a wall. It is a door, and if you keep walking, it opens into a version of yourself you did not know existed. This is the secret weapon of the Navy SEALs. It is not their weapons. It is not their boats or their planes. It is that every single man on the team has already stared into his own limits and refused to blink. Think about what that means for an enemy standing across from them. An ordinary soldier can be broken by fear, by exhaustion, by pain. But how do you break a man who has already broken himself on purpose and rebuilt himself into something stronger? How do you scare a man who chose willingly to suffer through the worst week of his life just to prove he could? You cannot. And that is why, Long before a single bullet is fired, the SEALs have already won the first battle, the battle inside their own minds. Section 3. Ghosts in the water, ghosts in the night. Now picture the enemy's side of the story. You are a fighter guarding a compound in the middle of the night. You have walked this land for years. You know every rock, every shadow, every sound the wind makes when it passes through the trees. You feel safe here. This is your home ground. Then, without warning, in complete silence, a team of men appears out of the darkness. They did not come by road. They did not trigger a single alarm. Maybe they came from the sea, swimming for hours through cold water with heavy gear strapped to their bodies. Maybe they dropped from the sky in the middle of the night, free-falling from an altitude so high that the air itself is thin and freezing, opening their parachutes only at the last possible moment so that no one on the ground even hears the aircraft that carried them. By the time you realize something is wrong, it is already over. This is the second reason the world fears the SEALs. It is not just what they can do. It is that you never see it coming. Every branch of the SEALs is built around one core idea: total mastery of every environment. The sea, because that is where they were born. The air, because a target can be reached from thousands of feet above, dropping silently through clouds that hide them from every eye on the ground. The land, because once they touch down, they move like they were never there at all. Most soldiers train to be strong in one type of environment. A SEAL trains to be dangerous in all of them. Cold ocean currents that would make an untrained person's muscles seize up in minutes. Jungle heat that drains the body of water faster than it can be replaced. Mountain air so thin it starves the lungs. Desert nights so cold they can freeze exposed skin. A SEAL does not just survive these places. He is trained to think clearly, move quietly, and make life or death decisions in the middle of them. And here is the part that truly makes enemies afraid. It is not simply that Navy SEALs are strong. Many armies have strong men. It is that Navy SEALs are patient. They have been trained to wait in complete stillness for hours, sometimes days, without moving, without making a sound, watching, gathering information, waiting for the exact right moment. Imagine lying in wet grass for an entire day, insects crawling across your skin, muscles aching from holding still, and not moving a single inch, because you know that one twitch, one cough, one wrong breath could end the mission and end your life. That kind of patience is almost impossible for the human mind to hold. But SEALs are trained for it, tested on it, and proven in it again and again. So when an enemy hears the words Navy SEALs, they are not just afraid of a gunfight. They are afraid of something far worse. They are afraid of an enemy they cannot see coming, cannot predict, and cannot outlast. That fear is earned, one freezing night at a time. Section 4. The brotherhood that cannot be broken. But there is something even more powerful than skill, and even more powerful than fear. It is loyalty. Ask almost any Navy SEAL why he does what he does, and very few will talk about medals or glory. Almost every single one will say the same thing in different words. I do it for the man next to me. This is the part of the story that turns fear into something deeper, something like respect, even from the enemy. Because a soldier who fights only for himself can be reasoned with. He can be bribed. He can be frightened into giving up. But a team of men who have trained together for years, who have suffered hell weeks side by side, who have promised each other that no man gets left behind, no matter what. The team cannot be broken by fear or bribery or threats. There's a saying among the SEALs, the only easy day was yesterday. It sounds simple, almost like a joke, but it carries a heavier meaning underneath. It means that every single day you show up and give everything because the men beside you are doing the same, and none of you wants to be the reason the team fails. This bond is built long before any real mission. It is built in freezing water at 3 a.m. when a boat crew is paddling and every muscle is screaming, and the only thing keeping each man's arms moving is the fact that he refuses to let his teammates down. It is built through years of training accidents, near misses, and small failures that could have been disasters if the team had not trusted each other completely. By the time these men are sent on a real mission, they are not simply following orders. They are protecting family, and that changes everything about how they fight. A man protecting only himself will hesitate. A man protecting his brothers will not. This is why, in the middle of chaos, when plans fall apart and the situation turns into something no one expected, SEAL teams do not fall apart with it. They adapt. They cover for one another. They make split-second decisions without needing to discuss them because years of training have made their instincts move as one. Enemies who have faced them and survived often describe the same thing. It was not like fighting a group of separate soldiers. It was like fighting a single creature with many hands, each one perfectly aware of what the others were doing. That is not something you can train in a few months. That is something built over years of pain, trust, and sacrifice. And it brings us back to the promise we made at the beginning of this story. Remember the mission we told you about? The one where a single mistake could have ended in disaster. It is time to walk toward it. Section 5. The night everything went wrong. Picture a team of SEALs on a mission deep inside hostile territory. The plan had been rehearsed for weeks. Every step had been walked through again and again on training grounds built to copy the real target almost exactly. Every man knew his job so well that he could have done it with his eyes closed. But real missions do not follow scripts. And on this night, almost nothing went the way it was supposed to. The insertion point was compromised earlier than expected. The route they had planned to take was suddenly no longer safe. Communication with support units became unreliable in the middle of the operation, cutting the team off from the guidance they had trained to rely on. And worst of all, in the confusion, one critical piece of equipment was damaged, the kind of failure that on paper should have forced the entire mission to be called off. In that single moment, everything the team had prepared for collided with everything they could not have predicted. This is the moment that separates an ordinary unit from a Navy SEAL team. Because instead of panicking, instead of freezing, the team did something remarkable. They fell back on the thousands of hours of training buried deep in their instincts. Without needing long conversations, without needing to be told what to do, each man adjusted. The team leader recalculated the route in his head within seconds. Team members quietly signaled new positions to one another. Using hand movements practiced so many times, they had become second nature. The damaged equipment was worked around, using the individual skills each man had built over years of training in situations built to simulate exactly this kind of failure. There was no shouting. There was no chaos. There was only calm, focused movement, even as the danger around them grew heavier with every passing minute. They pushed forward, adapting step by step, trusting each other completely, even when trust was the only thing they had left to hold on to. And here's the truth that most people never hear about missions like this one. The success of a SEAL operation is almost never about a perfect plan. It is about what happens when the plan falls apart, and the men have to become the plan themselves. By the time the mission reached its most dangerous point, the team was operating almost entirely on trust, instinct, and the invisible bond they had built together over years of shared suffering and shared purpose. Each man moved as if he already knew what his brothers were about to do, because, in a way, he did. And, in the end, against odds that should have ended in failure, the mission was completed. Not because nothing went wrong, everything went wrong, but because the people carrying it out had been built, piece by piece, moment by painful moment, to survive exactly this kind of night. That is the real secret behind the fear that surrounds the Navy SEALs. It was never really about weapons, or technology, or even the incredible physical training. Those things matter, but they are not the true source of the fear. The real fear comes from this simple truth. Even when everything falls apart, these men do not. An enemy can prepare for a strong opponent. An enemy can prepare for a smart opponent. But it is almost impossible to prepare for an opponent who has trained his mind and his heart to keep moving forward calmly and precisely in the exact moment when everything is falling apart around him. That is not something you can fake. That is something forged, drop by drop, through years of chosen suffering, chosen discipline, and chosen loyalty to the people beside you. And that is why, across the world, in more than 80 countries, in jungles and deserts and freezing mountains, the name Navy SEAL carries a weight that few other words in the world can match. Not because of the myth, because of the truth behind it. Closing. So, the next time you hear someone talk about Navy SEALs, remember this. It is not really about the guns they carry or the missions you see in movies. It is about a bell on a beach in California and the men who refused to ring it. It is about freezing water at 3 a.m. and the brothers who kept paddling anyway. It is about a night when everything went wrong and a team that refused to fall apart with it. That is why the world fears them, not because they are perfect, because when it matters most, they never stop. End of script.